Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. It's really nice to have you here in Charlottesville. Welcome if you are virtually traveling from abroad. Welcome if you are here and also virtual. It's so nice to meet so many new faces and see so many familiar faces, as well as see the ways in which home is with you today. So I'm going to do that awkward bit where I take forever to share my screen. So give me one moment here. Okay. All right, you should be able to see it. So, like I said, welcome to Creative Mornings. We've already done a great job of this, but participation's encouraged. There's some emojis you can use throughout the event, hand claps, even a virtual applause is great. We're just happy to have you here. We like to also kick things off with a photo. So I'm gonna make my screen larger here. Your puppies, your kids, your coffee, your random things that you got from your house, all welcome props and things to have in your photo. Your Belgian hot chocolate, your minions, all of it. All right. So I will count us off. I don't have something to hold, and the dog that I have is too big to hold up. So here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And we'll do one more. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you so much. See, already participated. I love it. So Creative Mornings is a global organization in 223 cities, 67 countries, with 27,000 attendees per month, with almost 9,500 talks online and 11.4 million video views. So a very expansive organization. Our theme today is home. And I'd also like to thank our global partners and our local partners. So first, our global partner, Mailchimp. And this month, we're sharing an offer from a member of the Mailchimp family, Korea Media. Korea's Fresh Fund program supports Black, UK, and US founders, streamers, and makers looking to get the thing that they love off the ground. They're offering $50K plus mentorship from experienced business owners, and applications are currently open. And next, I'd like to thank Skillshare. And Skillshare has, so for helping unlock your most joyful and truest self, author and recording artist Justin Michael Williams created a toolkit for radical authenticity with Skillshare. You can learn how to embrace what you usually hide and celebrate the ways you've been radically, unapologetically yourself. And we have both of those links in the chat. And like I said, we'd like to thank our local partners as well. So thank you to Worth Higgins and Associates, Ting, The Fralin, Willowtree, UVA Arts, The Bridge, and New City Arts. And we have a few announcements this morning, starting with Worth Higgins. I'm going to see if Scott's on. It doesn't look like he is. But Worth Higgins and Associates, it offers a lot of printing services. They've been recently asking for folks to sign up for their free Calico magazine on their website, which we've got there for you in the chat. So if you need signage, printing, would like to receive a catalog from them, feel free to check out that link. And next we've got Maureen from New City Arts.
Hey everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. We at New City Arts, our downtown gallery, Welcome Gallery, we have our first month-long exhibition that's open without requiring an appointment to come by since, let's see, last March. And it features 2 artists, I think one of whom is here today, Abigail Wilson and Zoe Edgecombe. And Abigail's work is featured on my screen. It's on the left-hand side, and they're prints that all have contour maps in them. And then Zoe has these large pieces up that are land maps that don't have boundaries or borders, along with text that's made from Virginia clay ink that she made from her backyard. So I just wanted to mention we're open Wednesday through Saturday through July 30th. We have a bunch of free events coming up. One is virtual. Next week, we have an artist talk that you can sign up for. All the events are free. And then this Saturday, Abigail's going to do a free printmaking demo from 11 to 1. You can come watch her make prints and take one home with you. And then next Saturday, Zoe's going to do a clay ink demo, and you can bring a quote about land. You can make something up on the spot. You can reflect on the quotes she has up in the gallery, and try using a dip pen with the red clay ink to make your own text. So yeah, we'd love to see you. Thanks.
Great, thanks so much. All right, next, speaking for the Fralin will be Emma.
Hi, y'all. That we've got 2 slides for the Fralin. This is the first one. Last month we put out on this, we put out a call for the Little Museum, which is a free little museum from local artists. I will say it was a huge success, the call. I think 42 artists applied, which is amazing. And it looks like this will be an ongoing initiative because it's been so popular. And so I think that there are 6 mini galleries within the little museum. And at the end, the art will go into a free store in which folks can come and leave a piece and take a piece, or you take a piece and be prepared to leave some later. Anyway, it opens on July 16th. It'll be on the terrace of the Fralin Museum, which you see on the picture behind. It's 5:30 to 7:30. I think, let me just double check that. Yeah, 5:30 to 7:30 on Friday, July 16th. It'll be free. We would love for anybody and everybody to come and be part of that unveiling. We're super psyched.
All right, and the next one.
And this is a virtual exhibition. I believe the first full virtual exhibition from the Fralin during the pandemic, in collaboration with, oh, my Portuguese, I'm Cultivate. I'm totally butchered that, I'm sure. But a virtual exhibition on the indigenous benches of Brazil. It is such a beautiful exhibit to go through while you have some time on your computer. So please check out both of these exhibitions. I'm gonna put all of this information in the chat so you can keep connected.
Great, thanks so much, Emma. All right, next from Alan, a message from the bridge.
First, let me say, Emma, there is definitely a small chance I'm going to go to that mini museum. Regarding the bridge, there are tons of things going on here all the time, of course, exhibitions, murals, public art, all kinds of things happening, but we can't do anything like that efficiently and effectively if we're not fully staffed. So the thing that I want to share with you today is that we are hiring. My trusty co-worker Heather is moving on to some really cool things in her life. So we're looking to add someone to the team. And if you think that might be you, it's a part-time position. You can learn more about it at our website. Link is going to be stuck in that chat, I'm sure, and you can find out more about what that entails and what it looks like. Also, if you have any questions beyond the information that's provided, always feel free to reach out and ask. Pass it along to anyone who you think might be interested as well.
Cool beans. And last but certainly not least, Jeremy from Willowtree.
Yeah, so some more job opportunities. Willowtree is a digital product agency. We have offices in Charlottesville, as well as Durham, North Carolina, and Columbus, Ohio. We help the most admired companies in the world build websites and applications that matter, and aim to build teams with diverse backgrounds, skills, and perspectives to enhance problem solving, foster innovation, and build a place where every tree can thrive. Because we call our employees trees because we're Willowtree and it's cute. But we're hiring a ton of positions, product and content designers of all levels, web analytics and SEO folks, and a lot of senior engineering roles. So, and in all 3 offices. So if you are not in Charlottesville, or you know some folks who are in Durham or Columbus, we're still hiring there too. And you can check out the URL at the bottom of the slide for more detail on all those posts and other roles that I may not have mentioned. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks so much. All right. So we always read our manifesto during Creative Mornings, and I like to ask for an audience member to read. So would anyone like to read this morning? You can raise your hand, use the raise hand thing, and I'll keep an eye on the participant list. Wave at me really hard if you've got your video on. But any takers? Hadley, awesome.
Everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty and hard work. We are here to support you, celebrate with you, and encourage you to make the things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections, in learning from others, in jazz hands, virtual claps, and virtual snaps. We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome.
Thanks so much. All right. So we have our speaker here this morning, Stephen Hitchcock. I'm going to read his bio real quick. So Stephen is the executive director of The Haven, a low barrier day shelter and housing resource center in downtown Charlottesville. He received his MFA in writing from Vermont College of Fine Arts. Stephen's interested in the overlap between the caregiving encounter and the creative encounter. His writing has appeared in Post Road, Juxtaprose, Story Style, The Midnight Oil, and elsewhere. So please join me in welcoming Stephen.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
All right. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me. I just wanted to make a few quick notes. Please, as has been said, use the chat to carry on side or parallel conversations. And if you have a question for me, just use the raised hand emoji. And maybe Corey, you could alert me if I miss it in the gallery. And I'm happy to take questions throughout, but we will also have time for some Q&A and to talk at the end. This morning's theme is, as we have enacted, home. And certainly the past year and a half during the pandemic has in so many ways like reoriented and upended our notions of home and of domestic life. And I know we all have stories and experiences to share and that we continue to experience. And yet it needs to be said, it is literally not my place to speak of home. I, like you, live on unceded Monacan land that has known and continues to know racialized trauma and violence. It's in the soil, it's in the architecture, it's in what's here, it's in what's not here, and who's not here. So I place myself here, but it is not my home or my place. At best, I speak as a guest. And so in that spirit of being a guest, I'd like to focus the theme of home on hospitality, if that's okay. It's a theme that I love. So I'll share a little, and just very briefly, about how hospitality informs my work at The Haven and my writing practice, but I'll mostly just read some poems and then we can talk. So The Haven, as Corey mentioned, is a low barrier day shelter and multi-resource center. So we try to serve people who are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. And so it's a place where someone can, it's like right in downtown Charlottesville, a place where someone can get basic needs met, like showers and food and storage and physical mailing address. But we really believe that that homelessness is a housing crisis. And so everything we do is an attempt to find a stable and safe housing outcome for folks. And you may have caught the term low barrier. We're a low barrier day shelter, and low barrier, when I say that, I mean, we don't screen or breathalyze for access or services. Everyone, like with Creative Mornings, everyone is welcome. And guests, which is the language we often use for clients, they can call in or walk in through the door and do so every day, and in every circumstance imaginable. So our tagline reads, "Because everyone needs a place to start." And so I call this low barrier approach, or I refer to it as radical hospitality. It just sounds better. And I would say similarly, as artists and makers, we've have always spoken of being visited, of language or the creative impulse arriving from elsewhere, whether from within or outside, unscheduled, unplanned. And so I like pairing these two notions. Of course, it's my life, so I think about it. But the Polish poet, and I am not Polish, forgive me, Czesław Miłosz wrote, "The purpose of poetry," and I particularly write poetry, "the purpose of poetry is to remind us how difficult it is to remain just one person. For our house is open. There are no keys in the doors, and invisible guests come in and out at will." This is sort of a posture of radical openness. And it's true that we're always crossing thresholds and having our thresholds crossed, borders, shelters, hospitals, sanctuaries, our homes, our time, our hearts and minds. Thresholds are everywhere. We're perpetually guest and host. And so I'm interested in how we respond to and attend to these threshold encounters. They might be in a setting like the Haven, or in your work setting, or at your home, or in your creative practice. I know for me, I really believe that writing poetry, like caregiving, is its own form of accompaniment. Like I receive and accompany in the writing process. How do we open ourselves? And I think this is a question I'm interested in us potentially talking about. How do we open ourselves to receive, whether it's a person, an interpersonal encounter, or the creative impulse, and not over-determine that reception? So hopefully we can talk about that and unpack that. But of course, given this last year, what do radical openness and radical hospitality mean in the age of COVID? It's a huge question, and one perhaps we can also talk about. Okay, so I'm gonna pivot from there. It's just a little bit about the Haven and me, and I'm gonna read some poems. And I'm gonna start with a poem that Maureen loves. So Maureen, you heard, is the director of New City Arts, and generally, if you don't know Maureen, generally you just do what Maureen says. You might not know that you're doing it, but it's just better to do it. Just take my word for it. So I'm going to read a poem. It's a persona poem, which is a persona poem is a poem in which you inhabit the voice of another, which is risky, to say the least, rife for misappropriation or just ringing faults. But it certainly, to me, illustrates the dynamic of receptivity and hosting. It's sort of like method acting, but without the audience. So this one is in the voice of Bill Gates, who I wouldn't say I readily identify with, so we'll just see how that goes. It's called Mr. Gates Goes to Washington. I sometimes wonder what I am thinking, what I actually think. For example, when I recently said, honestly, I've been a bit surprised that the climate talks historically haven't had R&D on the agenda in any way, shape, or form. I wasn't being honest, at least not with myself. But then again, who is? And how could we be? I'm rich, filthy rich, people like to say. What do they know about how rich I am when they don't know how to be rich? It's not easy, honestly. My money actually affects the weather, makes climate change. What does yours do? Why did they take so long to ask me to join the talks? I was surprised at how hurt I was when I began to think about it. When I say think, I mean feel. That's just it. I mostly don't know how I am feeling, what I honestly think. But I know what you're thinking. And I can see how you feel. America, I can see it, the way, the shape, the form. As Corey said, I attended Vermont College of Fine Arts, which is a low-res MFA program. So most of it's by correspondence. And then you have these residencies in the winter and summer. And so in 2018, I was at the summer residency and it got to like 20 below. As you heard, I grew up in the deep South, like the low country coast. So 20 below was news. And it was so completely snowbound on the campus, and it felt like living in a snow globe. And this poem sort of came out of that experience and the confluence of the extreme weather, Trump's presidency, the thick of Trump's presidency, and still the wake of August 11th and 12th, which happened the summer before that, which again, I'm acutely aware of, and I know many of you are, as the statues come down tomorrow morning. So this is a sort of confluence of all of those things. It's called Before the Erasure. Found out why I'm writing apocalyptically, why stars dot the nightscape like street fires, why the children have seemingly disappeared into a mythical wood, ensorcelled by mushroom fumes, an immediacy from which, who knows, they may never look up. Why I'm babbling on about the 7 blue heavens, because it's 20 below here. In this, the smallest capital of the Union, Montpelier, Vermont, my feet have begun the transformation process. Snow on the mountains, filling the valleys, erasing contours. In this way, it's like suffering. In this way, it's like spin. Because I can't rinse the taste of hate from my mouth. It's aniseed and fever pitch. Because there's nothing you can't vet. Your neighbor's lawn, her childhood, her cat-themed mailbox. Because I caught sight of Pharaoh's face over your shoulder in a bar on TV and called down upon his people's plagues of boils and locusts of darkness unto death until I saw myself and my loved ones among them. Because justice arrives too late, wearing a mask too tight or a brooch too small or cargo shorts, falls in with the wrong crowd, falls out of fashion. Justice, just ice. Thank you so much. I'm not drinking tonight. I'm burning up and slowing down because I spend my days parsing exposure's frisk and exposure's freedom. There's the arc of your life, then there's the grammar. You may never wash the grit from under your nails, and you may never have to. Because I'm frightened of paper. It's lily whiteness. I meant to buy some stationery. I left my wallet in another life. I feel the need to handwrite a letter to the editor on this cocktail napkin, a love letter, an apology, a recall, a threat, I need the feel. I need the feel of it. So we can, maybe you can respond to this later on, or if Corey prompts me, but I wonder like how you cultivate openness and receptivity and attention in your creative practice. I know for me, I walk a lot. I walk a lot. So for me, walking is the right pace for thinking and seeing and receiving and attending to the world and my own life. I know for many folks, they took up the practice of walking and just walked through the last year and a half just to get through. But it's a place where, for me, I work out my poems as I walk and my writing. And so this next poem is sort of in that spirit. It's called Retreat. Like so many others, I drive to the Blue Ridge to get quiet and small and find I'm huge and loud as I tear through spiderwebs, delicate, sheer, head-high tripwires, pound shockwaves into red clay, black earth, scattering insect, rodent, deer, bird, underground, in the air, through the trees and underbrush. I slow to listen for what I won't see. Quick, unsung terror, but for cicadas sharing, resharing the latest news like blight, and equally unsettling humility, it seems, now resides with the young. Or those green-blue iridescent beetles mid-forest, trippy in their there-ness and mute flamboyance, unmoved, and think to myself, am I seeing this? As though everything wants to be known in its own way, wants to be approached, if not by me. Cicadas rattle their cages, and yesterday table and chairs rattled in my house, might be rattling right now because of water main work. A young man stands half buried inside a rectangle cut in asphalt. Street surgery. I fall behind my own place. I fall behind my own pace. This is why I go to the mountains, why I take to them. And they to me, I don't mind saying, gift and giver all mixed up, like intention and consequence can get all mixed up. So I leave spider filament in my hair as proof of my whereabouts. I know who I am sometimes, and that's okay. That's for me. Maybe it's also for the green trees emitting isoprene, organic haze that makes the Blue Ridge blue from far away. Okay. You never really get used to the just utter silence of Zoom. You know, you're just like, here, I'm just going to cut my heart out and give it to you and just silence. No, I guess I am sort of used to it now. I've only have two more poems, more recent poems, seasonally appropriate. Corey, am I okay on time? Okay. Both incorporate names of the full moon. Maybe you're familiar with the fact that the full moon each month has a name coming from various different traditions. The worm moon occurs in March, and the honey or strawberry moon in June. And I think the moon itself is a beautiful image of receptivity and openness and the way it receives and reflects the light of the sun. A model for, I think, the artist. Okay, the first one is called Strawberries and Honey. The moon is appalled at Jupiter, I think, but I like my friends. I especially like my friends at night. Grass quietly receives our impressions. Moonlight dries the snow in our hair. Wine, we agree, is an elixir. And we've been talking spring into summer about things we really know nothing of. Dark energy, psychotropics, St. Mary, and our kids. Fireflies constellate. If I could name this shared feeling, I wouldn't. For an hour, only 20 feet away, a mother skunk and her kits, 2 black, 2 white, rummage, then bed down against the fence line. We agree their scent pleases some of us. I may be walking myself into joy again. We agree tomorrow, same time and place. Okay, last one. This last poem engages the theme of hospitality head on. And I think not overtly, but the pandemic looms in the background, sort of the weird headspaces that we entered in isolation. So welcome to my weird headspace. It's called spring cleaning. And in the first line, I use the word hoarding. Hoarding as in like one who hoards. I have trouble, I feel like, saying that word aloud. Spring cleaning. What's the opposite of hoarding? I ask the internet. I call my mom. I talk with my 5-year-old. She tells me a joke. Dad, what do you call the flower blooming in my head? I query friends. I consult my doctor, the dead, the dictionary, which states in no uncertain terms to purge, to give everything up. So I look to the stars, but only recognize the famous ones, their constellations, the way my daughter recognizes certain words, phrases, but cannot actually read. I take up drinking tea. I search my palm for meaning and find it cupped like a nest, like that nest in the ivy outside the front door where we startle the finches. They'll return, I assure her, because they want to reassure us. Like a mirror, like this mirror I gaze into all crystal ball-like to see myself becoming so unbecomingly feral. Hair sprouts everywhere on my head, from my cheeks and around my mouth. I need to groom. It's turning gray. Who am I preparing for? I could just let myself go before I'm gone. Instead, I check my hairline and note my widow's peak and remember the alpine meadow I hiked to a year ago, alone, also known as an Appalachian bald. Knee deep in the mirror now, I think about how no one needs to sweep a clearing as bluebirds swim the high tree line, its russet fringe, the taste of new seed greening on their flowing minds. The worm moon. In March, the full moon is called the worm moon. I feel it. You can feel it, pushing through the dusky blue loam of late afternoon, the sky, my eyes. It's Lent. I haven't forgotten my plan to give up nothing. If I was a meadow, would you visit me? Thanks.
I'm giving a little silent applause here. I think everybody's doing the same as well. There's a very enthusiastic yes for you in the chat from Emma. So Stephen had asked, you know, how do we open ourselves? There it is. How do you cultivate openness with your creative practice? So a question from our speaker to the audience, as well as the audience has some questions for you. So while you all are contemplating on your thoughts there, which I'd love to hear from you and share and start a little dialogue that way, there was one question. So you mentioned that you work out your poems as you walk. Are you recording your thoughts, poems while you walk sometimes?
I don't generally record them, but like maybe I'll just sort of repeat them, like work lines over in my head, more of that. I mean, if sometimes, like if I'm like if I have my phone with me, maybe I would, jot something down or record something, but mostly like the writing happens like at my house. And then sort of the kind of editing process, there might be like a some kind of image or line that comes, but it's mostly the sort of editing or revisioning process.
Okay. You know, you mentioning cultivating openness got me thinking, what are some of those ways that I do that in my practice? Because I don't think I've directly thought about that. And kind of what I thought about as both a writer and photographer is that connection to whatever it is that you're writing. How do you go deeper with that connection with what you're writing or who you're photographing? How do you connect on a more emotional level? So I'm wondering, how are some of those ways? So you mentioned walking, but are there other ways where you draw inspiration or you connect with the subject that it is that you're writing about, and any other means?
That's a good question, Corey. I mean, I'm not, I suppose when I'm like, say I've written something and I'm in the process of revising it and editing, and stop me if this isn't really answering or responding to your question, but I think for me is, and I sort of touched upon this, is like, how do you get out of your own way, right? Like we have expectations that are just like constantly there, right? And good and bad. But how do you both like receive something, but then like literally accompany it and both bring yourself to it and allow it to be its own, right? Like I don't own the words that I use, I'm with them, right? And they're with me. And so I think the questions, so for me, the way that I sort of try to re-enter the sort of the original impulse and try to be true to it in writing is to ask questions like, you know, like, why am I trying to come across with like some like sound, some like note of profundity or wisdom at the end? Like what's going on there? Like what am I? And that's like a portal back in to potentially like think about how I'm relating to, or how this subject matter is either being expressed or not expressed, or diminished or opened up, or what would be another, like, or just being done, like I just quickly being like, oh, you know, I had this rush of creativity and I don't want to go back to it, right? Yeah, I mean, I think those to me are ways in which I approach the subject matter or subject matters in a poem in order to sort of re-enter it and look at it from different angles and sort of trouble my own certainties, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does. Because I think it is, when you've created the thing, going back and trying to find a new angle and new perspective is probably one of the toughest things that you have to do as a creative, to see if what you're communicating can be understood or in the way that you want it to be, or if it's the right way, in fact, to be communicating. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Who are your go-to poets when you need inspiration or comfort?
Well, they change up, but there's a Swedish, I mean, he died in the middle of the last decade, a Swedish poet named Tomas Transtromer, who he's just someone who I go to a lot. He was a psychologist and writer. I mean, he did win the Nobel, so I mean, he's well known, well translated, but he didn't write a lot. And I like how he sort of holds his I mean, the way that he sort of like holds these two vocations. And I mean, he has such wonderful imagery. So he's someone that I go back to again and again. I mean, right now, Aracely's Gourmet, if any of you have heard of that, I can write that. I heard of her. I can write her name down in the chat. I have been reading Jory Graham. I mean, she's sort of mind-blowingly smart, and so like it's just amazing to get inside her mind, and the project that she's sort of been undertaking for decades. But I mean, I guess I sort of I read too much, like, and all the time. So I mean, it's kind of coming from everywhere.
I don't think there's there's no such thing as too much reading. I think that's the perfect amount of reading. Any last questions or thoughts on openness, how openness is part of your creative practice, for Stephen? Well, as we kind of linger here in these last few moments, I just wanted to thank you so much for getting us going this morning with beautiful, beautiful imagery and beautiful poems. I am savoring so much of, I wrote down little things, but the one that I'm savoring the most is Fireflies Constellate. Especially as we've got the hot summer nights here in July in Virginia with lots of fireflies whirling about in our backyards. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you for speaking and sharing this morning. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
And it's also been a pleasure to have everyone in our audience. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks for starting your morning with us, starting your Friday with us. I hope you continue to have a great day. That it's not too hot where you're at, and that if it is, I hope you keep cool. It's so wonderful to see everybody's faces. I always say this, and I will continue to always say this. This is my favorite thing, and I've been so grateful to have this. And I thank you all for being here. So have a great Friday, have a great weekend, and see you next time.
Stephen, can I just say one thing? It's Drew.
Hey, Drew.
I just want to thank you for the work that you do. You're an inspiration to me, and it's few and far between times I see you, but I think the steadiness that you have and the way that poetry was great to hear, because it kind of, just the way that you are steady with your walk and what you do is inspirational. And I think it's just it's been so cool to see how you've worked at the Haven and just influenced the people around you. And I think some of the creative stuff that you're talking about with, I'm an architect, so some of the creative stuff that I'm trying to dive into is like really researching the history of things and where things come from, and like trying to pull all those layers out. And so talking to people and people's stories is such a big part of that. And just the way that you do that through the Haven and getting to know the people in our community is just, I just wanted to thank you and say that it's been really cool to get to know you some, and I know everyone on the call probably feels similar, but just want to give a big shout out to you and just thank you for your continued work here. And I hope that I and us can play more of a part in it.
Thanks, Drew. Very kind.
All right, well, thank you so much, Drew, and thanks everybody here. We'll see you soon. Take care.